Chapter 13 of The Brand of Silence. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Roger Moline. The Brand of Silence by Harrington Strong. Chapter 13. A Plan of Campaign. Naturally, a man facing prosecution on a murder charge is liable to be nervous, whether he is innocent or not. If an attempt is being made to gather evidence that will clear him, he wishes for frequent reports, always hoping that there will be some ray of hope. And so it was with Sidney Prale this morning, as he paced the floor in the living room of his suite in the hotel. Murk had done everything possible to make Sidney Prale comfortable. Now he merely stood to one side and watched the man who had saved him from a self-inflicted death, and tried to think of something that he could say or to do to make Prale easier in his mind. They had not seen or heard from Jim Farland since the evening before, when he had engaged the taxicab and had started in pursuit of the limousine Kate Gilbert had entered. Prale wondered what Farland had been doing, whether he had discovered anything concerning Kate Gilbert, whether he had found a clue that would lead to an unraveling of the mystery. "Are you sure about that Farland man, Mr. Prale?" Murk asked after a time. "What do you mean by that, Murk?" "Well, he's a kind of cop, and I never had much faith in cops," said Murk. "Farland is an old friend of mine, Murk, and he is on the square, if that is what you mean." "He sure started out like a house afire, sir, but he seems to be falling down now," Murk declared. "He sure did handle that barber and the clothing merchant, but he ain't showed us any speed since he left us last night." "He is busy somewhere, you may be sure of that," Sidney Prale declared. "Well, boss, I ain't got any education, and I ain't an expert in any particular line, but I've often been accused of having common sense, and I'm strong for you." "Meaning what, Murk?" "Nothin', boss, except that I'd like to be busy getting you out of this mess. Seems to me I know just as much about it as you do, and if we'd talk matters over, maybe I'd get some sort of an idea, or something like that." Prale sat down before the window, lighted a cigar, and looked up at Murk. "Go ahead," he said. "It won't hurt anything, and it will serve to kill time until we hear from Jim Farland. What do you want to talk about first?" "It seems to me," said Murk, clearing his throat and attempting to speak in an impressive manner, "that this is a double-barreled affair." "What do you mean?" Prale asked. "Well, there's the murder thing, and then there's this thing about you having some powerful and secret enemies that are trying to do you dirt without even coming out in the open about it. Maybe them two things are mixed together, and maybe again they ain't. If they ain't, we've got two jobs on our hands." "And if they are?" Prale asked. "Then it looks to me, boss, like the gang that's after you is trying to hang this murder on you after having had somebody croak that Shepley guy." "I've thought of that, Murk, but it doesn't look possible," Prale said. "If my enemies merely wanted to hang a murder charge on me, as you have suggested, I think they would have planned better and would have made the evidence against me more conclusive. It would mean that there would be a lot of persons in the secret. The men who plan murder do not like to take the entire town into confidence about it." "Well, that sounds reasonable," Murk admitted. "And why Rufus Shepley?" "Because you had that spat with him in the lobby of the hotel, and it could be shown that you had a reason for knifing him," Murk said, with evident satisfaction. "Nobody could have known I was going to have that quarrel with Shepley, because I had no idea of it myself when I entered the hotel lobby," Prale said. "After I left the hotel, I met Farland and then walked down to the river and met you, and you know the rest. How could they have contemplated hanging that crime on me when they did not know but that I had a perfect alibi? I think we're on the wrong track, Murk." Well, boss, how about your fountain pen? Murk asked. How come it was found beside the body? That is one of the biggest puzzles in the whole thing, Murk. I cannot remember exactly when I had the pen last. I cannot imagine how it got into Shepley's room and on the floor beside his body. That fountain pen of mine is an important factor in this case, Murk, and it has me worried. It seems to me, Murk said, that if I had any powerful enemies after my scalp, I'd know the birds and be watching out for them all the time to see that they didn't start anything when I was looking in the other direction. But, Murk, I haven't the slightest idea who they are, Sidney Prale declared. I don't know why I should have any enemies that amount to anything, and that is what makes it so puzzling. How can I work this thing out when I don't even know where to start? I wish Jim Farland would come. Jim Farland did, at that moment. Murk let him in, and the detective tossed his hat on a chair, sat down in another, lighted one of his own black cigars, and looked at Sidney Prale through narrowed eyes. "Well, Jim?" Prale asked. "I talk when I've really got something to say, but I'm not going to make general conversation and muddle your brains with a lot of scattered junk," Jim Farland replied. "I'll say this much, things are looking much better for you." "That sounds good, Jim. Can't you tell me anything?" Prale asked, sitting forward on his chair. "The barber and the clothing merchant have fixed up a part of your alibi, Sid, as perhaps Murk has told you. That is the first point. It makes it look impossible for you to have slain Rufus Shepley, and I think Lawyer Coadley could get the charge against you dismissed on that alone. But I want to be entirely cleared." "Exactly. You don't want to leave the slightest doubt in the mind of a single person. There is but one way to clear you absolutely, Sid. We've got to show conclusively that you could not have killed Shepley, and the best way to do that is to find the person who did." "I understand, Jim." "There seems to be some sort of a mysterious alliance against you, Sid. You say that you can't understand why you should have enemies that hate you so, and I know you're telling the truth. Whether that business has anything to do with the murder or not, I am not prepared to say now. But we want to find out about this enemy business, too, don't we?" "Certainly," Prale said. "I followed Kate Gilbert. I know where she lives. She does not belong to a rich family and does not live in splendor. But she wears expensive gowns and has plenty of spending money and has mysterious dealings with a distinguished-looking man. Her father is mixed up in it some way, too. I went through their apartment, Sid. Somebody in that apartment wrote the anonymous notes you received." "What?" Prale gasped. "I found a tablet of the same sort of paper, and scraps of writing in the wastebasket that were in the same hand. Think, Sid. On the ship—" "By George!" Prale exclaimed. "She could have slipped into my stateroom and pinned that note to my pillow. And she could have stuck the second one on my suitcase as I walked past her on the deck." "And could have sent the others," Farland added. "But why?" Prale demanded. "I never saw the woman until I met her at a social affair in Honduras. What could she or any of her people have against me?" "Perhaps it was the maid," Farland said. "She could have done it, of course, the same as Kate Gilbert," Prale said. "But the same difficulty holds good. Why? Kate Gilbert did seem to avoid me, and I caught her big maid glaring at me once or twice as if she hated the sight of me. But why on earth—" Farland cleared his throat. "Here is another thought for you to digest," he said. "This Kate Gilbert knows your cousin, George Lerton." Sidney Prale suddenly sat up straight in his chair